Welcome to the Neuropreneur Rising podcast. If you're a coach or practitioner with ADHD or a busy brain that just doesn't ever seem to work with the norm, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Polly Pollock, and in these episodes, I'm going to be teaching you how to get visible, create reputation online, and sell your signature offer predictably without social media. I'll teach you everything I've learned over the last decade about building a capacity-conscious, life-first, profitable business that's driven by human connection rather than trendy tactics that burn you out, all in a way that works hand in hand with your natural strengths. All right, let's dive in. Hello and welcome back. So I am super excited for today's episode. If you are someone who feels like their impatience tends to run the show in business, and you feel like you're the kind of person when things don't feel like they're going your way or things are feeling a little bit slow, you are the kind of person to essentially just want to try and fix everything you can and just change things, and you can never just have a slow or quiet week without freaking out. This is definitely going to be for you. So please stick around. It will probably be the best thing you do all week. I'm not, blowing smoke up my ass or anything, but I just know how much I needed this kind of thing when I was building, when I was in the growth phase of my business, and I was an impatient little bean myself. I still am an impatient little fuck. At times I really am, but we get better at managing it, right? And that's what I hope that this episode will help you do. So if there was one thing I could go back and change when I started my business, my first business back along, there's not much I would change about my journey because I think that we're all put on the path that we're meant to take. But I would definitely change, if there was one thing that I had to, the impatience factor. That I used to just be so impatient and so hard on myself as well. I could have grown a lot quicker if I had just been a little bit more patient. And this is something that I see all the time with new students, with community members. It's definitely something with the neurospicy brain, this kind of hunger just to make something work. And whether that kind of comes from just wanting a quick win or a quick hit of dopamine, or wanting evidence, or just having such a big mission that you want it all now and you just can't bear the thought of it not working, that a slow week feels like hell, basically. Even if it's honestly, it's so normal in business to have slow weeks, quiet weeks, a quiet summer, a quiet season. This is business, and even 7-8 figure business owners will tell you that this is normal. Big corporate companies, everything. It's normal to have quiet periods, but our brains are just always looking for evidence. And like I said, especially with the neurospicy element to it as well, constantly scanning for, evidence that you're safe, evidence that something's working, evidence that you're on the right track. And ultimately, when we look for that evidence constantly, the truth is you're not always going to get that evidence, because that's not normal. That's not normal for that evidence to always be there in some material format or something that you're going to get outside of yourself. The evidence is you. The evidence is your ability to regulate, essentially, and to not essentially have your system shit a brick every time it's a quiet week. And so when we don't have the evidence, and that's what we're used to looking for, we will assume that something is wrong. And this is where the impatience kicks in. This is where the freaking out and distracting yourself with a bunch of other shit will kick in. This is what happens when we get impatient. Think about it. When you get impatient, what happens? You probably skip to, I need a new strategy, or I need to just change I need to rewrite my fucking email sequence. I need to redo my website. I know it doesn't really help if you're having a slow client week and you have more time on your hands, and that will kind of prompt you to redo a bunch of stuff as well. I'm going to change my offer. I'm going to, rewrite my brand values. All of that finicky shit. And do you know what the irony with this is, right? Is when our systems are freaking out like this, the things we grip onto and try and fix, website, brand values, email sequence, offer, all of that stuff, they're actually, funnily enough, the things that aren't going to do dick for our business like in the short term. It's like the irony of that is quite hilarious, because it's like, okay, we're having a quiet week, gotta fix it, gotta get it now. Can't, like, that's the impatience part, is that you want something now. But all of those things are things for the long run, and honestly things that probably aren't going to move the needle at all once you've got them kind of set up. Like fanny arsing around with them and trying to fix them probably aren't really going to do anything. But, you know, God forbid that we at least try and, if we're freaking out, do the things that will actually move the needle now. For example, DMing new leads back, having conversations, following up, creating more visibility, nurturing relationships. Weirdly enough, we don't choose those. We choose the finicky back end stuff. Like, think about the last time you did this. If you did think like, oh, I've got a quiet week, I'm gonna DM my new leads back, I'm gonna have conversations, good on you, because honestly, the default for our brains is to choose the finicky back end stuff. Like, sometimes also, like, we don't have to jump straight to those things. That's what I mean. Like, we can just take the quiet week and not freak out. But at least if you did something productive with it. For the majority of the time, it doesn't work like that, because impatience does not come from logic. Impatience comes from scrambling. It comes from your system going, something's wrong, fix it, I gotta fix this is fucked. Like, that's what's happening. And so I think a big part of this is that social media has trained us over the years to expect constant proof. Social media is just, it's like, yeah, it's made us go to the default setting of expecting visible proof that something is happening every single day. So every single day, we're trained to expect more likes, more views, more comments, more followers, more notifications, more little pings of dopamine that will make you feel like you're getting somewhere. I was on a podcast last week or the week before, I think it was last week, and we were talking about non-social media strategies, capacity conscious marketing, everything that I teach on, you know, building a business and a marketing system that feels better for your life, your bank account, without being glued to social media. And she was like, okay, to round this off, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot a little bit. And I was like, goody, I love that shit. And she said, what would you say to people who are worried that visibility of social media is a slower burn? Because realistically, you can kind of like post something today and then get comments and likes and views today. And I was like, I fucking love you for asking this, because this is gold for me to speak on. And I was like, think about the question you've just asked, because that's not a slower burn to me. Like, likes, comments, daily, like, feedback after you post something is not money in the bank. That's not clients in your program, in your offer. That's not conversations necessarily. That's not people buying. That's not fucking business growth. That is attention and activity and validation, or some kind of external validation. And that is where we confuse actual results with that, with actual momentum. No, sorry. Where we confuse actual momentum with fake dopamine. There we go. I literally just confused my own little brain there. But you get my point. It's not the same thing, but social media is just, it's just trained us to think of them as the same thing, which is why we're pining after it rather than creating real momentum. And so the truth of it, yes, it's not, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a slower burn in terms of actually clients coming in, you know, email list growth, visibility, reputation. I wouldn't say that off social media strategies in the way that I teach it is a slower burn. I think that coming away from social media feels uncomfortable. And I think that it's going to feel like a slower burn in the beginning because you're not getting those daily hits, you know, necessarily in the same way. And so when you move away from social media and into more sustainable marketing strategies that are better for business, better for your revenue, and better for you, you know, things like SEO, podcast guesting, speaker opportunities, guest teaching, your own podcast, email, partnerships, that kind of thing. you move into a different type of dopamine. It's a more real dopamine because you're actually experiencing connection, which I suppose would be oxytocin, but yeah, whatever. It's still dopamine, but it's not fake. It's not driven by external validation, and it's actually rewarding you with business growth. But it requires patience, and because it's because you're not getting, like I said, those consistent little hits of dopamine. And this is why people struggle when they move away from social media, because it feels like, oh no, my business has slowed down. But actually, this is why I'm such a hoe for data, because if you look at the data, that's actually going to be a really, really good like signpost to see, oh wait, yeah, my business isn't actually slowing down. I've just changed strategies, and actually it's still the same, and it might even be a little bit better. But our brain will ultimately go to that like place of, oh fuck, like I'm not getting the comments, I'm not getting the little notification pings, things are slowing down. Well, actually it hasn't slowed down. The only thing that's slowed down is the fake dopamine. That's the thing that's been removed. The thing that slowed down is the consistent quote unquote evidence that something is happening, even if it's not the right things that are happening. That's disappeared. And without that, when you haven't created sustainable systems to bring clients in, and you haven't created evidence within yourself and that self-trust, that's when your brain starts creating problems. And it's fucking hard. Like, I'm not saying that this is an easy thing to get through. This is what I support my students with every fucking day, because honestly, the majority of people have been trained to want and crave and need that fake dopamine from social media, even if it was never getting them clients. So I'm not saying that this is easy. It's not. But it's so necessary if you're in this for the long run. And I know you are, because you have a big mission, and you're not doing this just to fucking, for fun and you're not doing this for nothing. But it's so important that you play the long game, and that requires patience, but patience with the right strategy. And this is why I teach visibility and the whole ecosystem of, warming people up, creating relationships, bringing consistent clients into your offer. I teach the whole thing from visibility to marketing to email list building to relationship building to the sales. But this is why, for example, visibility, I teach this in a very, very strategic way, because I don't need people getting visible far and wide, burning themselves out, and then not getting any results from it and being like, what the fuck? So we need to be very, very strategic with the visibility, because like I said, being visible far and wide is just not it. You need to know where to put that energy. You need to know how to position yourself in those opportunities so that it's actually going to create, sales, clients, people into your world who are going to be interested in your work. You need visibility that are actually going to create opportunities. I think people confuse capacity conscious marketing or energy friendly marketing or like life first business with this, oh my god, bullshit about like just do whatever feels good and like just believe and like fucking don't worry about strategy. You don't need that. Like just do what feels good to you and your body. And it's like, yeah, no, like, yeah, okay, we want to do what feels good for sure, but we want to make sure that that's a strategy that feels good in the body, in the brain, in your whole life, so it's not a case of like just do what feels good and like throw everything else to the wind. Like that's just gonna keep you stuck for way longer. So you need both. You need the strategy, and you need a way of implementing the strategy that works for you, for your life, your capacity, for your brain. Otherwise you're just visible, and like that's not going to be conducive. So we want visibility that creates relationships, authority, opportunities, clients, conversations, that kind of thing. Reputation. That's the most important thing, in the right way, in the right places. So yeah, I want to kind of come back as well to, I guess, my own experience with this, because I've lived it. If you know anything about me and my story, I've lived this. And last year, I realized how long I had been holding on to Instagram when I didn't need to. When I came away from it, after years of being on it and having such a big social media presence, that fucking drained me, to be totally honest. And I didn't know at the time it was draining me, but now in hindsight, I'm like, oh my gosh. And so, I stepped away from Instagram last year. I moved towards the marketing channels that I knew were already working for me, but that I didn't have the time to go all out on because I was so distracted by Instagram and social media and just doing what everybody else in the industry was doing because I thought I had to. So, I moved completely all into my own podcast guesting, speaking, SEO, email, partnerships. That is what I moved into full swing this year. And do you know what? I had a wobble. Like, in the first kind of month, I decided, like, yeah, I'm not going to post. Because I had been posting every day, pretty much, or like 3 times a week towards kind of the last couple of years. The last year or so. And I had been doing that for years. It was like a part of me, I guess, and my routine and what I knew to be normal was taken away. And my business, I felt, was going to somehow, even though logically I knew all of that stuff was working for me anyway, even way more than Instagram. And I knew that if I went all in on that, what on earth bad could happen other than that I'd just double it? Look, I knew that. I fucking knew it. But there was something in my system that was like, nah, bitch, that's not good. That's not safe. Because I was so used to doing it. And that was where I found so much safety in fake dopamine. And I had moments of like, fuck, have I messed up? Like, somehow, even logically, I knew what I was doing and what I was teaching worked. It was my system wanting evidence. This is what I mean. It was me slowly starting to release the grip. And it was, for the first while, it was actually a little bit, it was relieving because I was like, oh my God, I can get my life back. I really did feel like I got my life back because I wasn't fucking filming everything and on social media all the time. And in the drama, oh my God, the drama. I've changed so much as a person since being off of social media, just because even though I didn't over consume on social media, you still see things and then it ticks you off or it gets you thinking. And I'm just like, oh my God, since I've been off of there, I'm just like, I'm so much of a happier person. But, from a personal standpoint as well as like business. But I had to learn that patience. I really, really did. And I had to be willing to kind of wait it out for a little while I was building up these new routines and building up momentum. And momentum is literally your best friend in business. Like, this is what I really, really want you to understand. Is like, the goal here isn't quick wins. The goal is momentum, and momentum comes from not chasing the next fake dopamine hit, not constantly changing strategies, not starting again every month. Like, ask yourself this, like, do you really want to run a business where you have to post every single day to maybe make a sale? Maybe make a sale. A fucking maybe in bold here, Do you really want to run a business where you can't take a 1 or 2 week holiday because you're worried about posting or making a post? Or if you don't make a post, that's the only way you're quote unquote visible or findable? No, fuck that. Do you really want a business where social media literally is your business and you're basically an influencer? Do you really want to start from scratch every single month, like both revenue wise and marketing wise, because you haven't built anything that compounds? Like, no, I'm guessing no. If you do, it's probably not the podcast for you. Go on with your bad self, but like, probably not the space, with love. But I'm assuming you're going to say no. So I think there's like an analogy that I can kind of put this down to. We want our growth to be rooted. The best things happen underground. So think about planting a seed. The roots grow down first, but you don't see anything happening. But underneath, things are building, things are strengthening, things are preparing. That's your business. That's what we want your business to look like. And then later on, a little bit, if you can have the patience to wait, these things that are growing underground, visibility-wise and conversion-wise, they're going to then sprout little leaves, little beautiful leaves. That's the result from the roots. We don't want to rush that, because otherwise we're not actually building anything that's going to grow any leaves on the top of the soil. If you get my analogy, I feel like I'm not I feel like it's not been as flawless as I hoped. My analogies never are, though, are they? Realistically, but that's what we want. We want your business and your marketing to be rooted, and then we want to see the results of that sustainably and have a compounding effect. These are the compounding assets that we want. Are things like a podcast episode, for example, can bring in listeners from now and then months, years later down the line. A guest podcast feature, if you're doing enough of them, let's say you are aiming for like one a week or something like that. That's an incredibly, that's a really good amount to not completely we want to make sure that it's not going to be too much for you, but also that's a lot of compounding assets where it can again get you found months and years later, and then that can introduce someone who joins your email list 3 months from now. Maybe they buy 6 months from now, maybe it takes a little bit longer, maybe they buy straight away. That's the beauty of it. It starts to create that flow. A speaking opportunity, for example, can lead to more referrals, more opportunities, more authority, again, clients directly. This is the flywheel that we're trying to create, rather than just like on the go all the time and expecting instant linear results from one thing. That's not what we want. We want to create a flywheel for this reason. So these are what I mean when I say compounding assets that are rooted. Instagram stories disappear in 24 hours. Instagram posts get scrolled by and then they literally have a shelf life of fuck all. Like, I think people say like 24, 48 hours, but I've never seen a post on there for 48 hours. Like, I don't personally. But they don't build the same kind of long-term assets that allow you to take your foot off the gas as these off social media visibility strategies. Just as an example. And so I'm gonna have a drink. One sec. I've been doing these podcasts like kind of as a raw one take thing, but that does mean that you guys are gonna get me slurping into the microphone. I'll try and be quiet. Oh yeah, fresh. Anyway, so I'm gonna pose a question to you. And firstly, I want to kind of note, before I ask you this question, this is coming from a place of love and not shame. I never want you to feel shame from any of these questions that I ask. And I feel like I'm compelled to kind of say this because I see these posts, or I have seen these posts, and the ones that are I've posted 10 trial reels today. What have you done? Get my fucking formula or whatever. This is not, I don't want this to feel like it's a shame thing, but I'm asking you this because I wish someone had kind of put this over to me, because it would have completely changed my perspective, and I would have been like, you're so right. Fuck, I get it now. So just, know that this has come from a place of love. And I honestly, if someone had said this to me before I said it to myself, it would have changed everything for me. So how long, realistically, have you been trying to make things work on Instagram, or the normal kind of hustle way of marketing? And kind of how long have you been trying that and seeing very little results? And this is something to ask yourself if you feel like, maybe it's I feel like I'm not patient enough, or I don't want to focus on the off social visibility strategies because I'm worried they will be too much of a slow burn, or I'm worried it won't work, or whatever it is. This is the question to ask. If you're worried about what 3 to 6 months would look like, and that's I don't want to wait 3 to 6 months, I want to get it now, ask yourself that question. How long have you been trying to make things work on platforms like Instagram, or the normal kind of way of marketing, and seeing little results? Has it been 6 months, a year, longer? I've had people come into my world who have been at this game for 5 years, trying the things that they quote unquote should be doing, and they haven't got one client. So again, this isn't a make you feel bad thing. I'm saying it's a really real issue. And then kind of compare that to, like I said, if you're worried about, it being a quote unquote slower burn, or you're worried that you won't get the evidence, or the perceived evidence that social media is giving you, the little ticks of the notifications and stuff, even though they're not bringing in any clients, compare that to kind of like what would 4, 5, 6 months of focusing on something sustainable that works and like is proven to work, what would that actually look like? That's a really short amount of time in the grand scheme of things. You got to think in, and I want you to compare it to how long you've been focusing on this normal way of doing things, especially when you know every step you're taking is like actually building towards the end result rather than just like flailing on social media, And so this is what sustainable growth actually creates and this is the goal of all of this. Of course, it's clients coming in. I always say that the only 2 things I care about with my students are clients coming in. I don't care about any of the fluffy vanity metric shit. Clients coming in and the fact that you are mentally well and feeling good in business and you're happy. 2 things I care about. And you're doing it in a way that works. That's all I care about. Like peace and profit. That's it. And so the goal with all of this beyond that is people finding you when you're not online. You don't have to be posting all the time for people to find you, for you to grow your business. Building a real reputation that is actually going to make you like a known and respected, and like it's going to make you actually an authority in your industry rather than a social media influencer. So building a real reputation, becoming known for what you do, not feeling like you're constantly working overtime for your marketing. And really how it should be is your marketing works for you. You're putting in efforts that will create, like I said, the compounding efforts, but that's how you get your marketing to work for you. This is how you get the amount of times I hear, like, I just want to be a coach. I just want to teach. I just want to share. I don't want to fucking hook people on social media. I don't want to do all this, like, creating reels and stuff. This is how you get to do that. Like, just let that sink in. And people think like, I can't market without social media. Yes, you can. This is how you get to do exactly what I've just said. This is how you get to just be a coach and do what you're best at and make it a part of a really solid marketing strategy at the same time that works way better. This is how you create that flow from visibility to warming up your email community to relationships to conversions. A consistent ecosystem that feeds clients into your offer, your program, on a consistent drip feed, rather than feeling like it's just a constant up down. You're battling with your business all the time. We really don't want that. So, some final recaps for you. So, 1, fake dopamine is not the same as momentum. It's just not. Lots of activity can feel exciting without moving your business forward. Doesn't mean it's going to be actually rewarding. Things like podcast guesting, speaking, partnerships, teaching, that kind of thing, might feel quiet on some days because, again, it's not a consistent daily action that you need to do for them, and therefore it's not gonna yield the consistent daily result necessarily in the beginning. That's gonna change though, like over time, when you start stacking your opportunities, and that creates, like I said, the drip feed. But initially it's not gonna feel like that consistent daily fake dopamine. And so my next point, compounding efforts feel invisible until it suddenly doesn't. This is the most frustrating thing. So right, actually I'm going to start this one with another little image analogy thingy. So this is how old I feel right now. So back in the day, there were actually like positive things on Facebook. It was really cute. And one of the things, it wasn't all just like hate and division. There was like this, I remember this, it popped into my head as I was writing the notes for this episode. I saw this like time and time again. It was like a little infographic thingy, and it was like a miner, like a gold miner or whatever. Do you call them gold miners? I don't fucking know. Guys who go and dig for gold and shit. I'm sure that's like the actual title that they put on their CV. It was like a little infographic of the guy, digging for gold. And then just as you could see on the picture, like just as he was about to like literally strike gold, he just like puts the shovel down and fucks off. I feel literally so old and cringe, but that I remember that really well. And this is the thing that people do at this stage of it feeling a little bit quiet when you're putting the compounding effort in. So the stage initially where you're pitching podcasts, you're networking, you're applying for speaking opportunities and teaching opportunities, you're building your system. It feels like maybe initially nothing is happening, and then suddenly the things start reinforcing each other. This is literally the stage that a lot of people quit right before it starts to work, right before it starts to naturally, because there's a lag stage. And then they just quit, they stop. And they go back to fucking Instagram because their nervous system wants the quick hit. God damn it. And that literally just like makes me want to take a cold shower and just like cry. It's not it. So that's definitely what I think a lot of people see, is that it will feel like a really slow moving thing until it kind of starts to come in quick. And you got to wait it out, and you got to be willing to like test as well. You got to be willing to look at your own data and test and refine, but not change everything. So yeah, don't be that guy who just like nearly hits gold and then turns around because he's too impatient. Gosh. Anyway, point 3. Sustainable growth might feel boring because it's not consistently rewarding your brain with the tiny little signals, even if they're fake. You have to learn to reinforce it yourself. You cannot outsource your confidence and your stability to things like likes, views, sales, any kind of external validation in business. Believe me, I've done it, and it's not the thing to do. Like, it's just not. You need to reinforce that self-trust within you, and then you become indestructible in business, because you can operate with this strategic side of things and the growth side of things. You can actually say, that's not me as a person. I'm the driver here, but the vehicle is what I need to work on, So you can't outsource it. You got to build that trust and confidence in you, which is a process, of course. And again, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I work on this with my students every single day. And we all have bad days. Believe me, I am not fucking sitting here like I'm perfect. Yes, of course, I've gotten past the main hurdles, and for the most part, I know how to manage all of this very, very well. But we all still have our bad days. I had a bad 3 days last week. My God, by the time Friday rolled around, I wanted to put my head through a fucking wall. It was not a good few days. But the weekend came. It was all good. I had some shit to work on. It was a very busy week life-wise as well. We're selling some vehicles right now, and, it was a lot, but we all have our bad days. This is not to say you need to be perfect all the time. No one is. Like, anyone who says there is just a fucking weirdo and probably lying. So don't listen to them. But, we got to commit to that process of building that self-trust. So, my gosh. That is kind of it from me, and I hope that this was helpful. And as always, if you want support, if you know that you need and want support in building something sustainable, and you're at the point where you're just like, I'm done with the guessing, I'm done with feeling attached to my phone like it's another appendage. I just want something sustainable that is going to allow me to do my best work, be a coach, be a practitioner, share that, and make that my marketing strategy, and being, strategic about where I'm putting my efforts so it's not taking up all of my headspace all of the time, then come and book a chat with me. As always, I have a few spots right now in NFSA, which is my signature program, the Neuro-Friendly Sales Accelerator. That's 4 months where I support you, majority one-on-one, and I will help you create that capacity conscious marketing ecosystem. So that's from the visibility to the email community to the offer, to your signature offer, and building a system where you can have people trickling into your signature offer on repeat. Sustainable client attraction, like I said, peace and profit, that's all I care about, and that's exactly what I'll teach you how to do it in NFSA over the course of 4 months. So it's application only. So you can head to www.neuropreneurrising.com/NFSA, or you can just head to the show notes and I'll leave the link there if that's a little bit of a mouthful, which it kind of is. And then you can apply, you can book a call, and we'll hop on a call. We'll see if it's a fit. It's application only because I don't accept everybody into NFSA. If it's not a fit, it's not a fit. I am conscious about who I accept into NFSA because I want to be sure that you're going to be set up to do really well in the program. And if it's not a fit, I can point you in the right direction, give you some resources, and kind of send you on your merry way. If it is a fit and you feel like it's a fit, then we can look at, of course, kind of how to move you forward. And I would be delighted to be your mentor. So come and book a call. You can apply, and I'll leave the link in the show notes, and I will see you next week. Peace. Alright guys, that is a wrap for today, and if you loved this episode, I would be so grateful if you could leave a review and maybe even share it with a business buddy who you think would really get something from it too. It really does make a huge difference. The more reviews and shares, etc. that this podcast gets, the more it gets pushed out to other creative, brilliant, neurospicy business owners who really need to hear this stuff. And honestly, I just want more people like you to know that success does not have to look the way that we've been told it does. So the more you help me get this into the right hands, the better. And if you're ready to take things a step further and get some real support, just head to the description and you'll find the link to the Neuro-Friendly Sales Accelerator, which is my 4-month signature marketing coaching program for neurodivergent entrepreneurs. From there, you'll be able to book a free strategy call with me. We'll have a chat to see where you are and see if it's the right fit, and we will go from there. All right, see you in the next one.